consideration between states, Philippines versus China, US versus France, and so forth. So anong role ng tao? Sabi nila. But remember, the acts are made by people and states are composed of people led by leaders. And so there should be an opportunity for these individuals to be tried internationally. After World War II, they set up a court called the Nuremberg Trials. So the Nuremberg court tried all the war criminals. Meron sa Tokyo, meron sa Manila. So we had a little bit of experience with that. Yamashita was tried in Manila. So yung ganung concept na, wow, we can do this internationally and making sure that justice works everywhere in the world. Problema noon, after World War II, you had different conflicts, naging ad hoc. Meron sa Rwanda, meron sa Sierra Leone, meron sa Yugoslavia, which is why we hear all other adjectives. ICTY, ICTR, International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, ECCC, mga ganon.
Naging specific siya sa isang lugar.
Sa isang lugar. Kaya sabi nila, let's have a permanent criminal court. And we have the ICC.
Okay, so kanina you mentioned nga yung nangyari sa Germany ng World War II at talagang paglipol ng mga Jewish people. So, ganung level ang pinag-uusapan natin. Ano yung mga categories o yung mga krimen na tinuturing ng ICC na pasok sa kanilang jurisdiction?
Unang-una na, yung krimen laban sa sangkatauhan. Yan yung tinilitis ngayon kay Rodrigo Duterte. Crimes against humanity is conceptualized in the concept of widespread and systematic killings or widespread and systematic persecution and other inhumane acts. So these are premeditated acts that are not covered by the regular, sabihin na natin, domestic crimes such as murder na parang, patayin nyo nga yung C123, yung buong pamilya. It is not at the level of the Ampatuan massacre, where the instruction was, whoever comes in from the Magudadato family, patayin nyo yan, yung buong convoy. What if there is an instruction na similar as to the Holocaust? Let's kill all the Jews. Or actually, they framed it as, we are the superior Aryan race, and whoever is not like us,
anything outside
blonde
that race,
and blue-eyed, alam nyo na kung anong gagawin. So, paano pag ganon? Hindi mo identify kung sino yung papatayin at walang specific instructions. Wala kayo nang bahala. So, that idea of crimes against humanity na widespread and systematic, that's one of the crimes. The other crimes are war crimes. Yan, medyo transcendent yan ng boundaries because
Si Milosevic,
yeah.
Yes.
And many other acts committed during war because I'd like to clear this up, no? All is not fair in love and war. There are rules for war. Kaya maiwan na lang yung... Kaya all is fair in love lang and engagement. Not war. Kasi war has rules. And if you break any of these rules, war crime yan. Or it depends on the magnitude, of course. And then you also have crimes of aggression and genocide. Genocide meaning you eliminate an entire race or an entire ethnic group or an entire political group. So, ganito kalala, ganito kabigat yung mga krimen na dinidinig sa ICC.
Sa ngayon, mga ilang kaso, simultaneous ba yung mga pagdinig ng mga kaso ngayon ng ICC? Mga ilan yan?
Right now, I have to check, but there's about 4 or 5 cases ongoing in the ICC, and it depends iba-iba yung time frame, and there's always this major factor that an accused has to be arrested and brought before the court. The ICC, and this is a crucial point, lalo na ngayon, the ICC does not conduct trial in absentia. Yung tipong absent ka tapos okay lang, magtutuloy yung trial kasi na-arraign ka naman. No. You have to be there in the custody of the court and have to face the judges as the hearings go on. Kaya if no one had been arrested for the situation in the Philippines, we wouldn't have seen any trial at all.
Okay. Ano ba ang tinitingnan para ng ICC para sabihing kailangan at mapapanagot talaga ang isang akusado?
Sa atin kasi probable cause.
Yes.
Tapos the next parang quantum of evidence would be proof beyond reasonable doubt. So those two levels are quantum of evidence. For the ICC, it's called reasonable basis to believe that crimes against humanity or whatever crimes have been committed in a particular territory, and that these crimes have been committed by these persons. It's similar to probable cause because it deals with two questions. Has a crime been committed? And who are most responsible? That's it. So similar. It should feel very familiar. And of course, the latter standard of proof beyond reasonable guilt for conviction, that's the same quantum of evidence or proof that we also need or that we also engage in sa domestic trials.
Ang isa pang nais ko rin tanungin at the start of our interview is yung title mo, no? Assistant to Counsel. Counsel to whom? Counsel to the ICC? Counsel to the accused? Ano yung counseling na ginagawa mo?
Okay, kumisa nga sabi, Assistant Counsel, parang or assisting counsel. So in the ICC, there are you have to be registered to appear before the court, and they're called counsels. So mga abogado. It's in the same concept of registering before the Supreme Court and the Integrated Bar of the Philippines. Of course, if you qualify, if you're registered in the roles, then you are a lawyer who can appear in any court in the Philippines. Sa ICC, ganun din. You have to be registered in the court so that you can appear before the court. You can maybe engage with the court in different capacities, pero when you have to appear, kumbaga, may trial, may hearing, may pipirmahan, may isasubmit, you have to be accredited or registered. I am assistant to counsel because at the time that I registered, ang qualifications ko is for assistant because I had less than 10 years of experience. Medyo bata pa ako noon. One of my first assignments was this, to deal with the war on drugs. Initially, it wasn't about filing charges really, but to make sense of what's happening. Tinulungan ko sila kung paano mag-gather ng information. Ano ba, sabi nila, ano po bang makukuha namin sa police after ng incident? Police report, etc. So later on, when we looked at the options, we thought that the ICC was a viable alternative, and so needed to register as either counsel or assistant to counsel.
Meron bang parang exam para makapasa dyan, or as long as you've already passed the bar and you apply for it, pwede ka nang
They just have qualifications. So one, you have enough experience in criminal or international trials, and competence, of course. Lagi yan sasabihin. Kumbaga yan yung pleasing personality na competence. Kumbaga kaya mong mag-engage. For counsels, it's expertise and more than 10 years.
Okay. Marami ka na rin nahawakan ng mga kaso, ano? Lalong-lalo na siguro yung mga kasong involving human rights violations committed particularly against the marginalized and disempowered individuals, yung mga mahihirap, yung mga walang kapangyarihan. Miyembro din kayo ng isang grupo, National Union for People's Lawyer, if I'm not mistaken. Ano tong grupo na to? Is this a volunteer group, and what exactly does it want to achieve?
Yes, it's a volunteer group of lawyers and even law professionals or law workers. So we also have law students. I joined this organization when I was still a law student. Karen Empeña is my friend. Batchmate ko yan sa college. She disappeared in 2006. She was taken, abducted by Jovito Palparan. And so this case was my first case with NUPL. Kumaga, there was, at that time, 2007, so there were enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killings, and the Supreme Court wanted to act. We had the writ of amparo, and I joined, or I entered law school in 2008 with a parang starry-eyed na ideal pa na maybe we could use this. Eventually, we secured actually one of the first two writs of amparo for Karen Empeño and Raymond Manalo. In 2018, we secured the conviction of General Palparan. And so that's the work of NUPL really, helping those who might not be able to prosecute or to engage in cases if it was just them against the world. Because you're looking at the time, General Palparan was so powerful. Even during the SONA, parang he was applauded, he was singled out, and praised on television. Kaya parang, paano babanggain yan? Kaya what I can say is NUPL has had the temerity really to go up against the rich and the powerful. And it has paid off. Imagine, we were able to contribute to the arrest of Rodrigo Duterte for crimes against humanity.
So nagamit ba ninyo yung mga cases na hawak ng NUPL as a basis for building a case against the former president?
Yes. So the skills that you get from building a case for extrajudicial killings is specifically tailored for evidence gathering. And the skill also that I learned is that you need to focus on the elements. So what will prove fact of death? What will prove the pattern? What will prove the method or manner of the killing? And in building this case for actually it's still also extrajudicial killings, we've just applied the same principles. We've applied the same expertise, so to speak. We've applied the same discipline. And ito, patience. From all our experience, nagkaroon na rin kami ng lessons. And sabi nga, di ba, God grant me the serenity to accept things I cannot change and the courage to change the things I could and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yes.
Minemorize talaga namin
So lahat yan natutunan nyo?
Kailangan mong maisip what's within your control, what is not within your control. Because with extrajudicial killings, it is very rare that you would have evidence. Kasi ang sabi nga namin, what's different between EJ case and regular murder? The state participation or the state aspect ensures that there would be impunity. Walang mananagot dyan, walang mag-iimbestiga dyan, walang magsasampa ng kaso
So hindi
dyan.
uusad yan?
Hindi uusad.
Kapag inusig siya? Or
Kapag sinabi ng gobyerno, tahimik ang lahat.
Okay. Ngayon, ito isa sa mga laging tinatanong ngayon ng mga kababayan natin, bakit nga ba na i-turn over, o inaresto si dating Pangulong Rodrigo Duterte gayong tayo po'y kumalas na sa ICC? Pasasagot po natin yan maya-mayang konti lamang sa pagbabalik ng In Person.
Ang paggamit ng hindi lisensyadong baril, iligal at mapanganib. Sa Bagong Pilipinas, pinaigting ng PNP ang pagsawata sa paggamit ng mga hindi lisensyadong armas.
PNP will be agents of progressive transformation in the lives of our people by ensuring the safety and well-being of every community in the land.
Mula July 2022, halos 70,000 iligal na baril ang nakumpiska ng PNP. Arestado ang higit 21,000 individual dahil sa paglabag sa Comprehensive Firearms and Ammunition Regulation Act.
We are giving focus po doon sa mga holders po ng mga loose firearms na talagang nagagamit sa crimes. Kaya yun ang aasahan natin na kapag nagagawa nating ipakulong, mahuli, mabawasan yung mga loose firearms na po posibleng magamit sa paggawa ng krimen, ay makakaasa tayo na mas mamimaintain natin yung peace and order sa buong bansa po.
Sa Bagong Pilipinas, ang pagsupil sa mga gumagamit ng iligal na armas, natatanggalan ng kapabilidad ang mga kriminal.
Okay, nabitin po yung ating tanong kanina kay ICC Assistant to Counsel, Attorney Kristina Conti. At ito nga yung puna ng ilan na illegal naman daw yung pagkaka-aresto. Wala namang pinakitang warrant of arrest o kung meron man, soft copy lang at wala naman talagang physical warrant of arrest. Ano ba yung procedure pagdating sa paghahain ng warrant of arrest?
Ang sabi sa Rome Statute, the process or the manner of the arrest will be undertaken according to the process in the arresting state. Okay. So papasok dito, ano ba dapat ang pag-aresto sa Pilipinas? a warrant of arrest under our rules of court, does not necessarily have to be produced. Well, I mean, produced in the original at the time of the arrest. Kasi syempre, hindi natin alam yung circumstansya ng arrest. So, nakita mo, wanted yan na. As long as you can engage and convince the suspect that the warrant of arrest is real, and you can produce the warrant of arrest eventually, that would be sufficient. So, if Duterte was shown a Xerox copy, a soft copy of the warrant, and he was able to understand that he was being arrested for whatever charges, so crimes against humanity, that would have been sufficient as kumbaga, service. Later on, when the opportunity is, kumbaga, when it is more convenient, then he could ask for a copy of the warrant. And that opportunity would have been when you were in an office, when you had access to a computer, pero you cannot resist an arrest saying, bakit wala kayong warrant of arrest? Hindi, meron po akong warrant of arrest. Hindi, kailangan ko makita yung original. That would be improper. In the Philippines, ang proseso natin, di ba, I ask you, or I introduce myself. Police ako ikaw ba si? And if you confirm, I will continue with the Miranda rights. And we should not also forget the torture warning. You should also be asked, do you want to see, di ba, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say will be used against you. It could be used against you. If you have a right to a lawyer, and if you cannot secure the services of one, the state can pay for one and help you. Torture access, you have the right to see a doctor of choice. This is a protection against torture. And if you do not have a doctor, we can assist you by procuring you, by securing the services of maybe a public doctor. So, pag nasabi nila yan, that should be fine.
So this was said in Villamor. I think ang narinig ko sa isang press briefing was parang nag-request sila na wag na muna dito kasi sa tube ng aeroplano naganap yung unang pagtatagpo. So they deferred it. So it's okay if it's deferred. At ang isa pa sa binabanggit
hanggang
nila.
Hanggang makarating ka ng opisina. Tapos convenient na, ito.
There's another detail na sinasabing under Article 59 of the Rome Statute, dapat iharap muna sa isang local court yung nasasakdal. Well,
I agree. That's what the Rome Statute says. I've been posting and talking about that. The requirement is when you are arrested, the custodial state, so kung sinong may hawak sa'yo, has the responsibility to bring you before a local court of competent judicial jurisdiction. Competent court with competent jurisdiction. I might be mixing up some of the words. And the court will ask, one, are you the right person? Are you identity, verification of identity? Second, verification or checking of the processes. Have the rules been followed? Alam mo ba kung bakit ka nandito? Because of the many rights that are read to you, kumbaga, right to remain silent, right to a lawyer, right to a doctor, there's one thing that you cannot waive. It's the right to be informed of the charges against you. Hindi pwedeng, hinuhuli ka namin. Period. Dapat sasabihin mo for murder, for whatever. Hindi pwedeng wa-waive yun. Parang, hindi, sasama na lang ako sa'yo. Kahit ano, hindi. I need to tell you, as a law enforcement officer, I need to tell you that you're being arrested for a particular crime. Otherwise, it becomes invalid. So I guess there's a little bit of politics as regards that na, hindi ko nga alam kung ba't ako hinuhuli. He has to know that. And if you're brought before a court, you would know kung alam mo ba. Kaya lang, syempre, komplikado. And then the last the last question is, have your rights been violated?
So in this case, was he brought to a local court?
No.
Okay, so when will that happen?
As it appears, he will not be brought before a local court because he has already been surrendered to the ICC. So that requirement, or the Article 59 protocol, has to be complied with before surrender to the ICC. These are exceptional circumstances. But we're not a member state. And it would be hard to compel the Philippine government to, well, of course, I would also want the Philippine government to be part of the ICC again, even minimum to cooperate. But at this point, they could say that, well, our obligation was only because of RA 9851, which talks about surrendering a suspect or an accused to the ICC, which has already investigated or is prosecuting the charges. So, pwede nilang lusutan, kumbaga. And anyway, for me, what is more important is Duterte will have the same opportunity, will have the same, will be afforded whatever rights at the initial appearance before the court, which could happen within the next 2 to 4 days. This initial appearance before the court will ask the same 3 questions. Identity, process of arrest, and have your rights been violated? So he will still have that opportunity. It is also an opportunity to, well, ask for interim release or bail kung tawagin nga natin sa Pilipinas.
Yes, oo. Itong tinatawag na, ano nga ba, provisional
Release, conditional release, or interim release.
Nagka-grant na ba ng mga ganito in the past?
ICC. Yes, conditional release in the cases of several accused of Article 70 crimes. So these are, sabihin na natin, lesser crimes. This is considered the 5th crime before the court, yung crimes against the administration of justice. In alternative or katumbas dito sa Pilipinas, obstruction of justice, destruction of evidence, tampering of evidence, intimidation of witnesses. Some have been granted conditional release because that was their charge. For the original 4 crimes, yung matitindi, kumbaga kung sa atin, reclusion perpetua ang ang penalty, wala pa. Kaya it would be interesting to see if he applies for it considering the lack of precedent. May nag-apply na hindi pinayagan.
So walang jurisprudence, ika nga.
Well, there
from
is.
the ICC
There
itself.
is of denial.
Denial, ayun. Pero yung nag-grant.
Nag-grant, wala.
Okay. Yun na nga, no, he has a right to counsel, di ba? So, paano yung legal team na magka-counsel sa kanya o didepensa sa kanya, ito ba ay maaring galing dito sa Pilipinas? Because sinabi na rin ni Vice President Duterte na doon na nga siya, no, para mag-abogada sa kanyang ama. Ano ba usually yung sistema? We just want to understand kung ano yung normal process pagdating sa mga counsel.
Yung abogado, again, he has to be represented by at least one counsel accredited with the court para pwedeng mag-appear. Yun yung important eh. Kasi magkaroon ka man ng abogado or counsel na mag-a-advise sa'yo, sino magsasalita sa'yo sa korte kapag nagkaroon ng trial. There are about 1,000 plus counsels accredited to appear before the court. He should have a copy right now of these counsels. Pili lang siya doon. Kung medyo, sabi niya, ayaw niya ng foreigner, may 5 Pilipino na nandun. So sige, pili na lang siya. Huwag masyadong mapili na baka mamaya wala nang magre-represent sa kanya. Hindi pwede din ganon. He could also engage the services of other lawyers, even Filipino lawyers not accredited with the court. And so I would concede that Secretary Medialdea could be part of his legal team. I'm not sure about Sara Duterte because she's vice president and officials of government are not allowed to practice unless under exceptional grounds and if you have authority to practice. Hindi pwede yan na vice president ka tapos nag-aabogada ka. Kailangan pag-isipan ng mabuti yan. Also, for Secretary Medialdea, what he can do within the 15 days is apply for a long-term visa. So, these are suggestions for them. Bahala na lang siya. Ang important ay yung abogado of his own choice.
Ayun, okay. So, hindi pwedeng i-force sa kanya yon. He needs to agree.
Yes, although in some instances, ang hirap yan. Paano kung hindi na ako mag-agree na magkaroon ng abogado para hindi magtuloy yung trial? nagkaroon ng ganyan na scenario, sabi ng court, we cannot forever wait. And so there is also a group, an office in the ICC, kumbaga family, the Office of the Public Counsel for the Defense, which could advise him of his rights, which could advise him as to what to do, and could represent him in court. So, if in the Philippines, it's like the PAO, para matuloy lang yung hearing, yung PAO na lang magre-represent sa'yo. There's no lack of options for Duterte.
Okay, yung confirmation charges yan ngayon ng mga tinitingnan ngayon, no? Yung mga, ano nga ba, preliminary submission of evidence, meron na bang ganyan? Meron na bang ipapasok na ba niya kung ano yung kanyang plea or hindi pa?
Oh, so after the initial hearing is technically part of the, parang sa atin, arraignment. Kasi tatanungin, ano bang pangalan mo? Tama ba itong nakalagay sa ano? Titilad-tila rin yung dito sa ICC talagang step by step, napakakuti. Sa initial appearance, yun lang, identity, rights violated. As soon as it's finalized or locked in, the confirmation of charges hearing is like the latter part of the arraignment, which is reading of the information. And i-advance ko na, mahaba ito. The reading of the information could take minutes, hindi naman hours. Pero because they're going to talk about how many killings, how many cases, and you've seen the warrant of arrest, it's 15 pages long. There's a bit of background that is needed before you can say, and there have been crimes against humanity committed. So the confirmation of charges hearing will talk about what are the charges and if the evidence is sufficient to move forward with trial. Present during the hearing should be, of course, the defense and the prosecutor, but also the victims.
The victims, but they're all here. Or wala na sila.
Well,
so who will represent the victims?
some of us who are committed to represent the victims, there are two other counsels that I know are representing victims. We just need to talk among ourselves na sino ba ang uupo, sino ba ang pupunta. And we can do it by turns even. Kayo muna, next hearing. Kasi mahal. Di ba?
I know.
Imagine lang din natin kung papaano yung expenses, especially if, now I'm just talking about the lawyers going there, especially if the victims themselves want to participate and be present during trial.
Yes.
Kaya we're looking at a host of logistical
challenges.
For
sure.
Sabi nga namin, nightmare ito ha.
Okay. Marami pa tayong pag-uusapan. Huwag po kayong aalis at magbabalik pa rin po ang In Person.
Sa buwis na babayaran, aangat ang buong bayan. Kaya naman mga kababayan, pay as you file. Magbayad ng buwis sa tamang panahon. Para sa forms at karagdagang impormasyon, bisitahin ang BIR website. Tumawag o mag-email. O magsadya sa pinakamalapit ninyong Revenue District Office o Filing Center. Isang mahalagang paalala mula sa inyong PTV.
Nagbabalik pa rin po tayo dito sa In Person. Kapiling natin ngayong gabi ang ating panauhin si Atty. Conti ng ICC. So ito nga po may mga petition ngayon na inihain actually at may naghahain pa sa Korte Suprema para mapabalik dito sa Pilipinas si former President Duterte. Pwede ba bang makilahok ang Korte Suprema dito?
I think unlikely, and in a sense that the Supreme Court last night announced that it has rejected the appeal for the TRO, for the request or prayer for TRO, saying that it found no right. It found that no urgent rights had been violated and that there was no irreparable injury to Duterte. So, in essence, wala na yung TRO. And also, it would have been dead in the water because when you ask for a TRO, you're asking someone, something, to stop doing or desist from doing something. But what if that something has already been done?
Yes. But
Wala ka nang magagawa.
ayun, kasi nandun na siya.
Nandun na siya. Wala nang hawak. Even the habeas corpus, which asks the detaining authority to explain the detention. The habeas corpus asks the detaining authority. The Philippines is no longer the detaining authority. So
yung mga petition nila na pabalikin dito sa Korte Suprema, hindi
wala na. You
yun.
cannot undo the arrest. You cannot undo the transfer of custody to the ICC. And just the point about the illegality of the arrest, kasi parang yung sinasabi nila, it was illegal. On the face of the arrest, or on the face of the warrant, it was valid. It was issued by the International Criminal Court, properly instituted with authority. So at this point, I don't see any space for the Supreme Court to kumbaga, counter the validity of the warrant or to question the existence of the court or even its authority.
Okay. Hanggang saan pwedeng tumulong ang Philippine government? Ano? Because I know that the Philippine consulate now in The Hague, the Netherlands, is helping at least yung entourage no, ni former President Duterte for their visas and all that. Pero hanggang saan sila maaring makatulong?
Well, from my point of view, we should rejoin the ICC and cooperate entirely with the court in the investigation and during trial. Because, and I will offer something that perhaps would be palatable to Duterte, because if we were a member state of the ICC, if he's convicted, he can serve his detention, yung punishment na. Kasi ngayon, nakadetain siya para to stand trial. Pero kapag kulong for punishment, yung parang bilibid, this is the difference between the BJMP and the Bucor, pwede tayong mag-offer na sa bilibid siya ma-detain for the service of sentence. And so the cooperation of the Philippine government can go whichever way. And at this point, however, it seems to be at the discretion of the President.
Okay, but that's something that you would recommend? Na
Yes,
sana
go all the way para hindi rin masasabi na he was not afforded due process and that there was whitewashing. Because if the government does not cooperate and there's information within its powers or within its repositories that the ICC would have wanted to look into, and you're not cooperating, well, we, the victims, would likely see that as being part or colluding with covering up.
Okay, I remember na talagang hindi naman nag-submit din ng gobyerno ng anumang mga documentary evidence or documents to the ICC. My question is, ano ang relationship naman ng ICC with the Interpol? Because sila rin yung naging kabahagi para nga ma-aresto si dating Pangulong Duterte. What is the tie-up there?
They're friends in the same way that we're friends with other countries and with the agreement to cooperate on information. So Interpol and the ICC have signed an agreement as to data sharing. The Philippines is a member of the Interpol. And so, dun tayo nadawit na parang indirectly, ergo, we need to share information about the location of suspects when the Interpol asks for it. Just to be clear, the Interpol is not a police force. Hindi siya yung tipong pupunta dito at umaresto. Kaya, I see fake news, quote-unquote fake news, that saying the Interpol came in and arrested Duterte. No. They assisted in the arrest of Duterte, but it was the Filipino police which effected the arrest. Maganda naman yung punto, kumbaga, yung naging role ng Interpol, which was simply to facilitate, kumbaga, some things, maybe information, maybe tactical activities on the ground, because it shows our openness to be part of this agreement, of this Interpol, of this organization na sharing is caring, di ba? Kaya pag tayo naman ang nag-request request dito sa Interpol, then maybe pagbibigyan tayo.
Yes, and we have been asking their help, diba?
I'm looking at the Alice Guo case and their role. They also kind of assisted,
Yes,
but
they did.
it was it Indonesian authorities who really took in Alice.
Yes,
So kung tayo ang mananawagan, kung kailangan suklian din natin yung ginawa natin, hiningiin natin sa kanila.
So there has to be goodwill, ano?
Yes, certainly. So it's international committee and mutual benefit.
People want to know rin, biglang everybody's talking about Attorney Chrissy. Conti. Okay. You've been a human rights lawyer from the start of your career.
Yes.
Bakit human rights?
Actually, I came from a science course and I really thought that, wow, it's just so
Science?
technical.
Ang
Yeah.
layo.
So I shifted to journalism actually. So I finished journalism kasi sabi ko, hindi ko na kaya yung micro, ganun. Kasi hindi ko nakikita yun sa tunay na buhay. But of course, it has a lot, na-realize ko, it would have a lot of impact. Kasi nung COVID, sabi ko, oh, shucks. Diba kung ang scientists ang ang important. But anyway, here I am. I took up journalism. And what I really felt was, you feel a calling. What I really felt was, I wouldn't be happy in a corporate environment. People like me, kasi with my background, hindi naman ako top 1%, di ba? I'm part of the 99% na in some ways powerless, in some ways marginalized. It's just that because I'm part of the intellectual class, like a few of us, workers pa rin tayo. And my product is my intellect, my knowledge. And I could oppress and at the same time be oppressed. So sabi ko, I cannot be silent or I cannot, I have to take sides. And I choose to take sides with the marginalized.
And what's the feeling of being able to defend the marginalized?
It's a thankless job really, and at many points you would feel real low na parang, ano ba to? And it's a cycle. Whichever president, there would always be some issue. So it's frustrating at the same time, but incredibly and powerfully vindicating, and the feeling of parang shared victory after developments as what happened when we were able to convict General Palparan, and now that we're able to secure the arrest of Duterte. It's like contributing to making the world a better place.
Okay. Right now kasi, nandiyan yung mga grupo na mga kaalyado siyempre ng mga biktima, yung mga pamilya, na talagang ngayon lang sila nagkakaroon ng sense of relief, although minor relief. And on the other hand, meron din mga nagsasabi na ang biktima ngayon ay si dating Pangulong Duterte. Parang nag-cross na ng lines, yung kung sino yung victim at sino yung naging victimizer. Ano yung mensahe mo sa mga kababayan natin na tila nabe-blur na yung linyang yan para sa kanila?
Walang lokohan. Huwag kayong paloloko na sila ngayon ang biktima, considering that they have been afforded every privilege and all of the rights that are due them. And this due process that Duterte verily denied the victims is now being afforded him is something that we will always relish from a position of morality na we are not asking for him to be taken to the guillotine. Kumbaga, an eye for an eye. No. We're just asking that he be given and we be given the opportunity to try and to hear the cases in a fair and proper manner. And this is our time. And we don't want any parang hindrance to this call. Dapat tuloy-tuloy nang walang question. Dapat maayos ang lahat because it's time now to show Duterte what he should have done, including paano ba yung pag-aaresto, paano ba ang dapat na policy ng war on drugs.
So, Attorney Chrissy, ano naman ang mensahe ninyo para sa ating mga pamilya na nagkaroon ng mahal sa buhay na namatay dahil sa bloody war on drugs?
kapit lang. Kasi mahaba na yung pinagsamahan, pero mahaba pa yung proseso. Marami pang pwedeng mangyari. And at this point, I'd like to emphasize that this period is very sensitive. It's tricky. This is a time when if victims or witnesses or the lawyers are harmed in any way, it could have an effect upon the opening of trial. Kasi wala pang kumakagat na ebidensya. Wala pang naririnig yung korte. To be technical about it, he's just being brought to court upon allegations. We haven't proven anything yet in court.
But you have the evidence already.
Yes, we have the evidence already, but it's not yet entered into the record. So we need that chance, we need that time, we need that opportunity to be in court and present our side. That's when it will be there for in perpetuity and where it could be acted upon by the court. So to ask for a relief of conviction, to ask for a relief of makulong siya, to ask that we be compensated for the things that have happened, kumbaga mabigyan ng danyos, kailangan may ipakita kami sa korte at may mapruwebahan kami, paniwalaan ng korte. Wala pa yung pagkakataon na yun. So near and yet so far. So we just want these victims to stay put, steady. And for the other victims who are not yet represented or have not yet come forward or who would like to be considered as victims participating in the ICC process, you can come forward and ask for assistance from, of course, our group and the other groups that are helping the victims.
All right, and with that, maraming salamat sa inyo, Attorney, for your time tonight.
Thank you,
And
Angelique.
talagang it's been a learning discussion. Thank you so much. Para kay Attorney Maria Kristina Conti, patuloy ang pagiging paglaban nila sa karapatan ng ating mga mamamayan, lalo na ang mga nasa marginalized communities. Sa bawat hakbang patungo sa hustisya, naway magpatuloy ang liwanag ng katotohanan at pagkakapantay-pantay para sa lahat. At yan po ang tunay na mukha sa likod ng mga balita at isyong pinag-uusapan, matapang na humarap at nagpakilala. Ako po si Angelique Lazo at ito ang In Person.